Hello and welcome into Rolling with Our Special Friends podcast. Today we have a very special friend of mine that I've got to know over the years and hang out with, Mr. Landon. He is such a great guy. He's into a ton of things, does a lot of sports, a lot of outdoor activities, but it's better to hear this story from the person that knows him best, from his mom. Miss Katie is going to come in. She's on the line with us and we're going to hear all about him. How are you doing today, Miss Katie?
Good. How are you?
Oh, we're doing just fine. We want to know, and there's a lot of people out there listening that have children, special children like yourself, and we want to know and learn those things through this podcast and be able to understand who Landon is and tell us his story. So maybe there's other parents and families out there listening of what kind of person. So just teach us about Landon. Who is Landon?
Landon he loves life and he loves everyone, and he is a different kid, just like any other, but he is a special one. I tell you, he loves life and he loves everyone that he meets. There's not a stranger that he doesn't meet that he doesn't like.
Well, now that's pretty cool. That's what I know and I've learned about him myself, but I think other people should know that about him, about how great he is. You know, when we try to tell the story today of Landon, one of the things I want to know, and I'm sure a lot of people out there listening like to know the same thing, is tell us what it's like as a parent when you get that information from a doctor, either through just seeing them face to face or some kind of phone call or testing or how. I've heard it all different kinds of ways. Tell us what it's like to know you're going to have a special kid.
God's pretty funny because he knows he's got everything placed out for us and in our lives. Because I look back now and I think that he prepared me for Landon, whether I realized it or not. My mom was a PE teacher, and she had a special ed class in her PE class, and I was the assistant for her. And I actually, instead of leaving school or, doing whatever I wanted to, I actually participated with the special ed children in the class. And one of them was a girl that had Down syndrome. She was nonverbal, but by the time she finished that class, she spoke a word. And I think it was God telling me that, preparing me for Landon, realizing because I was 19 when I got pregnant with Landon, and I got the news over a phone call that the genetic testing did result in trisomy 21. And I think when I had to tell my parents the results, they were crying. Brian was crying. My husband, he was pretty upset because, I think I took it better than the three of them did. I told him it was going to be okay. We were going to get through this. Brian was afraid, about coaching and being a dad. He, was he going to get to be able to do the things? And I think I just kind of said, we got this, we can do this. And I think so far that we've done that.
Well, and that's pretty good information that a lot of people like to hear as well, is just knowing when that information comes across your plate that you have to make that call, and how many parents out there are making such a great call and taking one of these children and loving them just like anybody else. Because to me, they have some of the greatest hearts of anybody that you'll ever meet in your life. I just love Landon every day I've been around him, and as is everybody I've ever seen around him. He's one of those kids, he walks into the room and the room just lights up because Landon's there.
Oh, yes. And he comes off real shy at first, but once you get to know him, he opens up and he loosens up and you get to know him. But he's very dedicated. He loves everybody that he meets. And, there's not a stranger that he doesn't know. I've gone to Walmart and I run into people, hey, you're Landon's mom. And I have no idea where I've seen them. I guess that school is the main thing. And that's a huge support.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And now tell us, going off the conversation or a question we had a second ago about you getting that conversation with your doctor and finding out how things were going to go, would there be, what advice would you give a parent hearing that information? Like, I know you took it pretty well, and sounds like your parents maybe took it a little differently. What advice would you get somebody out there that's listening to this podcast that's other part of the country somewhere that they just found out that information?
Well, everybody handles situations differently. So I think I had to tell myself I had to be strong, whereas I think my parents were more worried about how I was going to handle it, not so much of how Landon would be, because I think we all had that bond. That even Brian, after he got the results and they sank in, I think it was okay. But different people handle situations differently, and I think you know, if I had to give advice, is get your support system. Go talk to somebody. Start early with knowing the knowledge and what you need to know with the diagnosis, and accepting the knowledge. That's hard. Accepting the diagnosis, regardless what the diagnosis is. There's not one thing that child may not be able to do because of that diagnosis, and that's our biggest thing. We don't say we can't because he has Down syndrome. That is not in our vocabulary.
Well, and that's what I love to hear. That word that people don't want to sometimes put out there, but I do, is you just don't use that C word in my book. I think that's one of the things that help us overcome everyday life, is being able to not turn down an opportunity no matter what it is. I say always try something once, and if you don't like it, do something else, but you may find out you really like something even after you try it once.
Exactly. Don't ever say they can't do it before they haven't tried. I mean, you've got to try to see if you can actually. I mean, physically, there's some things that he may not be able to do physically, but you don't say he can't. Don't say a child can't or someone can't do it without trying to begin with. So that's how we try.
Well, that's very good advice. That if I was a parent out there listening, I would definitely hold true to some of that information, to have myself a plan in place and then also be willing to try new things. One of the things that goes along with that I kind of want to get into a little bit is tell us about the first 10 years, let's say, of Landon. And what I mean by the first 10 years is give us that baby Landon, that little bit above baby Landon, kind of like the milestones. We've had parents tell us before sometimes that they were concerned because they didn't know if their child would hit all those milestones, like walking and crawling and speaking. And we just want to know Landon's story. How was Landon at that 0 to 10?
Well, we started when I found out the diagnosis through an amniocentesis. We started researching and therapy, of course, with all kind of therapy services for strengthening and doctor visits. We prepared all that before I actually delivered with Landon. But you have to realize that there's some things that no child is going to be on the same milestone, regardless. If you have a milestone book and it tells you that at 12 months they should walk, at 6 months they should sit up, there may be a typical child that has no diagnosis whatsoever, and they may not walk till they're 15 months old. That doesn't necessarily mean anything's wrong. It's just when they want to. A child's going to do something when they get ready to. So I've never had a milestone journey for Landon. I never set one because working in a pediatric office, I see that no child is the same. No child is going to talk they're all going to talk when they want to. They're going to babble when they want to start babbling. So I don't think I put even a milestone on Landon. When we hit the milestone, of course, we celebrated, but I don't think I ever wanted to put the milestone on him because, for one, I already knew that he was going to be delayed in his milestone achievements. But once I saw that those were delayed and I saw other children, no child is ever on the same checklist of a milestone and achieving it for every age that has listed. So I think that's kind of how I put it. And I try to explain to other people that even just any other mom, regardless of they have a diagnosis or not, I don't have a milestone chart. I don't go by a milestone chart. When we achieve it, that's when we celebrate. So I think that's kind of helped me too.
Well, and that's a pretty good perspective to have, I think, because we've had parents that I've talked to over the years that have told me that, hey, we wanted our child to do exactly like our first child did. That wasn't special. That we want them to walk by 9 months or 12 months, and when it took them 18 months, they were disappointed. And I think you have the great outlook on this thing is to not set those milestones. Just know that they're coming and don't get upset.
We went to the Bell Center in Birmingham, Alabama we started at 6 weeks of age with Landon for therapy to 3 years of age. So that really helped with, therapy services before he started preschool and into elementary school. So that's another help that helped achieve those milestones, of course.
Right. Now that we've talked about some milestones and setting some, you as well saying not setting some plans, kind of going with the flow, as they say. Tell me about something that might have been a mistake that mom or dad made in his growing up process that you would change. And I'm not necessarily, you don't have to give us any bad things as far as, we're a bad parent because we did this, because nobody's a bad parent. I think even with a regular child, you can read all the books like you said you want, and there's no way to have a perfect child. But is there something in that plan you put together that you go, okay, we went to the Bell Center, we went to Birmingham, we did Children's, we did all these different places, but this is the one thing I would have done, added to that, or done differently? Maybe not as much a mistake, but tell us something that you would have changed.
The one thing I did say when I had my second child was, regardless if we did have the positive genetic testing by blood work, that I would never do the amniocentesis again, just because of the risk it took. It's a very high risk. That was one thing that I've always said I would never do it again. And actually was very painful, but that, regardless if I had that diagnosis or not, it wasn't going to change Landon or change my delivery. It wasn't going to change my child either way. That was one thing that wasn't really a mistake. I think it was just something that I said I wouldn't do again. But it did help me also prepare, because I was a young mother, to what to expect when we did deliver, because we did have to go to UAB, the hospital in Birmingham, and deliver instead of our local hospital, just because of the high risk that he was. Of course, just to make sure that he didn't have any cardiology or neurology, it was a better chance for him to stay at the NICU. Other than that, like I said, I don't have a milestone chart. I guess you could say I was pretty laid back. I'm not one to have a parent check off list and say that I should have. I don't know. I guess I should say we all have our faults, regardless. We're no one's perfect. So I guess we live and learn, because there's not a book of parenting either, of telling you you're not gonna suck on that pacifier until you're 2 years old, but then after 2 he's still sucking on the pacifier. I mean, that's not Landon, but I'm just saying in general, there's no way you can say my kid's not gonna do this. You just gotta do it and stick with it. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Right. No, and I can understand coming from that side of it. So it's not necessarily as much mistakes as you're saying. Just when you get started on a path, stick with it. Don't try to change it up as you're going.
Yes, and it's not easy. No, life is not easy, of course, but consistency is the big thing we have to keep with, and that's what is big with Landon. He's very consistent in schedules, and staying consistent and on his schedule, and don't go off that road and veer off to another exit, because it will throw him off if we do.
All right. Well, tell us now that we're getting a little deeper into this conversation of learning about Landon and everything about him, teach us about how that young age of growing up, that other children have treated Landon. Let's just say when Landon was 2 and he was around other children that were 2, and as he gets older, what are you seeing? How are children treating Landon?
I couldn't ask for a better group of kids his age. He went to the Bell Center, like I said, from age 6 weeks of age to 3 years old. My mother and actually my grandmother at the time drove him back and forth while I was in school for 2 days a week, Tuesday and Thursdays, to Birmingham, which was a day trip. Every Tuesday and Thursday was an all day trip with him and another little girl that had Down syndrome that was from Auburn. They rode together, and they would go and do therapy and come back. I couldn't ask for that better help while I was in school. And then when he graduated at 3 from the Bell Center in Birmingham, we went to Jacob Slider. We started at the 3-year-old classroom, and I could see then that these kids that are still with him now in 6th grade, They have accepted him. They treat him just like any other kid. He's at 3 years old. He started the class and he was saying maybe 3 to 4 words. When he finished the 3 year old class, he was not saying 3 to 4 words. He was saying pretty much a good vocabulary that I was shocked. But it's around other kids. He was around other kids all day, and now he's in 6th grade. He has a group of friends. I mean, from kindergarten when he started elementary school, kindergarten, walk in, Landon would stick his arms out, and the girls in his class, he had them wrapped and still does. If we would let them do it, the girls would take his backpack off of him, put it in his little cubby, and get his books out. And still to this day, I think he would let him if we allowed it. But that's how spoiled Landon is with his group of friends, and we couldn't ask for a better group.
Wow. Well, that's pretty special. Do you think that going on, was that how to say it, a non-scripted thing? Maybe did you think their parents talked about that and talked about helping him, or do you think those kids just took it upon themselves?
Honestly, I think these kids have taken it upon themselves. I mean, there could be some along the way that their parents have told them, but I think that because they've started and these group of friends have been, I mean, Landon's friends with he has friends that we each year in his class become his friend. We've gained friendships from him. We don't go to school to make friends. We go to school to learn first of all, but we will make friends in the classroom regardless who's in the class.
Okay.
We will make the friends in the class as we learn.
Okay. Well, to understand the rest of his story, I want to get in just a little bit deeper. We're talking about, him hanging out with his friends and at school and things like that. I want to get into the sports side of things. When we discuss baseball, tell me what the world of Landon playing in baseball is like.
Well, we've started at T-ball through now, which we didn't get to play this year, which was sad. But Landon has played like any other child. He plays with the city league ball. He gets his dad. That was one of the big things. My husband was upset about it. First, was afraid I won't get coached. He baseball his whole life. I won't get to coach him like I want to, which he immediately realized I'm going to coach him, and he helps coach, and I think our family in general is just as competitive and just as hard on him as any other child. So he doesn't have, and he's very competitive himself. So the baseball side, he plays just like any other kid. Now, the only difference is when we moved to the kid pitch, his dad was throwing to him off the mound, or another coach would throw to him off the mound. And he got 5 pitches just like every other child, 3 strikes, and he was out. And if he hit the ball, he had to run to base. And if he got out, he got out. That's part of life. I think he has to learn life just like any other child. So it's good to see these kids that, 1 year or a couple of years, they wanted the kids, which it did. The kids threw the ball. When he hit the ball, the kids would throw the ball from the infield to the outfield and let Landon score, and he would slide in on his belly. But as the older they got, and those kids love to do it, but the older they got, Landon had to learn that 3 strikes, you're out, and 3 outs, 3 up, 3 down, you swap sides on the baseball field. So that's just part of growing up, I think. But these kids, they still want to throw the ball to the outfield and let Landon run and score. So, but it's pretty neat to watch them play.
That's one of the things I wanted to bring up too, is I've personally watched it myself in some of his games, and to see the regular, normal, everyday kids out there get to play with Landon is amazing because of what you just said. I think they start to put 2 and 2 together and go, you know what, we want him to do good. We want him to have a score run. We want Landon to have the best. And I think without realizing it, a lot of us are watching, a special thing go on, because we're changing the lives of other kids just by letting him participate in those sports.
Oh, yes. And I've had to I've had to stop myself plenty of times because our coaches have had to come and ask me, is it okay if we let Landon do it this way? We want Landon to score. And one year he did make All Stars. And when I got the phone call, it was T-ball. And I got the phone call and, I said, no, because there's some kid that really wants to play, that deserves to play. And Landon, I don't want y'all to just put Landon on the team because he's Landon. And the coaches said that they had voted and they want Landon on the team. So I just said, well, let me talk to my husband about this. So we talked about it, and I said, he may never get this opportunity again, Brian. And I would kick myself for not letting him do this one special time. And I think when we went to that tournament, we didn't win, of course, but it was experience. But 5 and 6 T-ball, and the other team had no idea who Landon was until we got there, and the coaches were in tears, and the umpire gave him a game ball. It was pretty neat to watch these kids, adapt to not only just every other child. Some kids have other disabilities that may not be as noticeable or as needed for services as much as Landon or any other child that does play. So it's pretty neat to see the city come together and allow these kids to do play, just like any other child.
Now, that kind of leads me into another question that I'm sure a lot of people out there are interested in knowing and hearing in case it's happening to their child now or it may be happening in the future of their child. How do you handle, and you explained a little bit of it, but how do you handle all of the attention? How does, when people are just, oh, Landon this and oh, Landon that, and let's do the game ball and let's do this for him, how is a way that you would tell other parents out there with that attention? Like, what is there a way to know what you've already explained, a way to separate, hey, he needs to learn versus, hey, this is an awesome experience?
I think because when we started, there's been the same group of little coaches that we've had. There's been a few new ones every now and then, but he's had for a couple of years the same group of coaches that know Landon, or their sons know Landon, and they've seen Landon play. And I think once, at practices and stuff, you can see Brian throwing the ball to him just like any other kid. Of course, he's not going to throw a 80-mile-an-hour fastball to him. He's going to have to learn to catch the ball and put his glove up and catch the ball and how to step and throw. But I think from the beginning, we started out as, this is how it's going to be. We're not going to, Landon's going to play ball, and we signed him up to play ball just like any other kid. There may be a few bumps in the road that we have to smooth out, but I think this is how we're going to do it. And so far it's worked well. I'm not saying every bit of sunshine and rainbows and, everything, every day's perfect. We did go through some little kinks in the road through the years with baseball, but that's life. We have to figure those out. And I think every year I kind of set it as, if it's a new coach or someone we're not sure who his coach is, or they're not really sure who Landon is and they need to get to know him, I go ahead and say, Landon is just like any other child on this team. We're going to be just as tough. He's going to run laps just like any other kid. And if he stops, he's going to pick up where he stopped, and he's going to keep going. I mean, we're going to finish this just like any other kid. We're not cutting corners. We're not going to give in just because it's Landon. And I think that's how it's always been, and the parents have learned that way too.
Well, and that's a good piece of advice out there too for those other families that are listening. Is that's the way to approach this thing, because you are in the end, at least hearing your story, you are in the end trying to teach him. You're not just letting everybody give him everything.
Yes. And I mean, I'm not saying that Landon's not getting, Landon is a spoiled rotten child just like any other child. He gets, most of the time he gets too much, but we do not want him to be handed everything in life, because at the end of the day, he needs to learn how to do things himself. He needs to be a little more independent, and we're still every day working on that independent Landon.
Speaking of independent Landon, we went over some baseball sports that he's played. I know he's been into basketball as well, but tell us what, for a special child, tell us what the outdoors looks like. Tell us what you said, hunting and fishing is some of the things he does. Tell us, if you're a parent out there listening, what does those outdoors look like? What does it take to get Landon outdoors? How much Landon loves being outdoors.
Landon is he could sit on a couch and watch his iPad all day long if we let him. It's easy to try to do that when you're trying to get things done inside the house or outside the house. It's easy to put an iPad in front of their face, just like any other child. We have to pry it off of him and give him iPad time, but he also has to go outside. Now you have to make games. He loves games, any kind of competitive game, or if you want him to pick up sticks, we have to make it a game of how many sticks. I can pick up more sticks than you, and he'll go out there and help. But now it may be pulling teeth to get him up off the couch, but we have to do it. Now he loves fishing. He loves hunting. Of course, he'll go to sleep in the stand, but he loves to hunt. And he likes being outside, but he'd prefer to be inside on his iPad if we let him. But once he gets outside and is having fun, he loves to be outside. He loves to come to the lodge and play outside, but he also knows he can go in that back room and play Xbox too, though he has at that lodge.
So now, with other parents out there listening, is that the outdoors for a special child? What do you think they get out of that?
Other than the nature and being outside, you can also bond. That's a special time. My husband's not a hunter, but he likes to fish, so that's a special bond between those two. I prefer hunting over fishing, which I like to do both, but I like to hunt more than I do to fish. So Landon and I bond more with the hunting. Now, parents may not like to hunt or fish or like to be outside and play games, but there's something outside that the parents can bond with their kids with, or find something, siblings that can, they can bond and learn their child and learn what they like to do. And you really see the bond between your family growing and others who like to do the same type of things with your child. And it's really neat to grow those kind of friendships too, and that bond with them.
Well, that's pretty special in itself. To what you're saying and recommending to other families is to get out there and grow bonds with other families that have special children, because you could learn from each of those families maybe something different that they're doing that you're not, that may benefit all of you in the end.
Correct. Like I said, there's no perfect anyone. Nobody has a book that we can all say that this has worked for everybody, because I can guarantee you it hasn't. And so I learn every day something new about how to do things, or about Landon. Any child, I learned, it's still a learning process every day with a child.
Oh, there's no question. I think that with just any child, it's a learning process. Tell us something that I get asked very often for these podcasts from different people listening is what are the goals going forward? If we were going to lay out a game plan, okay, we know Landon is where he is right now, and you've already done what you've done to get him to here. What does the future of Landon look like? Is there independence in his future? Is it school in his future? Where is mom trying to go with this?
Well, I've always said, because I get asked that question too, what is Landon going to do after school? And my answer is, that's Landon's choice. I will do my part as a parent to make sure he does what he's supposed to do in school and learn and be the best he can be, and try to become more independent every day in his daily life, like in just independent home living. But if, regardless, I'll support Landon whichever way. He may not be able to be independent and on his own after school and be living on his own, which that's what our goal is too. But I also know that working towards something and pushing him may veer him to the opposite direction. He may push back and not do it. So whatever Landon achieves, we accomplish, or whatever he accomplished, we celebrate, and we move forward, and we keep striving to each goal. But I wouldn't say I want him to do this. I do want him as a parent to do the best he can do. But if he's still under our roof and he's not independent, we'll do as much independent home things he can do, independent daily living in our home that he can do. You know, there's some kids that with Down syndrome that have graduated and gone to college, and some are married, but that may not be the case for Landon. But Landon will be the best he can be regardless. And we'll push as hard as we can to make sure he is doing what he's supposed to be doing in his daily life. There's some kids that I see that they don't have the support system that some parents do. And so it's really sad to say that, because some parents just don't want them to do the best they can, or be the best they can be, because that takes effort and as a parent. But I would feel really ashamed to know that I didn't try the best I could to be a parent, even with a child with special needs, to give them everything they wanted, because it cost it was a little more effort to as a parent, other than as such as therapy services, or working a little extra harder with that child to make sure they get to where they're learning how to wash a dish. It may take him 3 or 4 tries to learn how to wash the dishes, compared to my other child who might be able to do it the first time she learned how to do it. That takes more effort as a parent to do that. And some may not want to help the child learn and just give up and let that child just not achieve anything and be nothing in life. And that's not what I want Landon to be. I want Landon to be the best he can be.
There you go. Well, that's what I definitely love hearing, is somebody that's out there striving to make everybody the best they can be. And I think Landon's doing that within his life, as a lot of these other kids are striving to do the best they can do to help other people. And I think he's teaching a lot of people. Tell us, before we go, we got a couple of last questions left. Tell us, if you can, off the top of your head, tell us a crazy Landon story. Has Landon spilt something, tripped something, played a trick on somebody? Did he dress up as something for Halloween that was funny? Give us a crazy Landon story.
Oh, let's see. Landon. Every day is a crazy Landon. There's nothing. Let's see. One of the things, he loves Sam Hunt. Like I said, for Halloween, we had a Sam Hunt Halloween costume for 2 years, I think. We went to a Sam Hunt concert, and then we had a Sam Hunt birthday party. So he was crazy about Sam Hunt and crazy about music. But Landon also loves to go hunting. So he likes to sleep in the tree stand, or the shooting house, and he snores really loud. So he thinks that's funny when he falls asleep and we have to wake him up. So
one of the things we want to make sure, if anybody out there's listening, if you've got connections, make sure to get with Sam Hunt and tell him that his greatest fan in the world, Landon, would love to hang out with him and love to be right there in his presence, and get maybe even to sing a song with him one day. So if you're somebody listening that's got connections, get with us, get with the show, send me an email, send me something, and we'll make this happen. We'll hook this family up. I know there's somebody out there listening that can make that happen. So, Miss Katie, one last thing we always want to close our show with, and it's kind of our signature question for the show. We say that when we close the book of life on Landon, what do you hope that book reads?
Well, job well done for one thing, and that he was loved and he loved everyone. He lit up a room when he walked in, and he loved everyone just as equal as everyone loves him. Love like no other. I guess that's what I was trying to say.
I don't think it can be any better said, because I don't know that there's anybody in this world that wouldn't want to go into a room and light it up and then be able to have as many friends and touch as many lives and do as many things as he's doing. He's just such a special kid to know. And I hope everybody out there listening today has got just a little small piece of who Landon is, and his journey in life, and who his parents are and what they're trying to do for him. So going forward, if you're a parent out there of a child that's special and has Down syndrome, maybe take some of these pieces of advice with you, maybe be able to apply them to your life and know, these people have already been down the road before, and Landon is paving the way for a lot of other children to follow. So we want to say thank you, Miss Katie, for your time today, and we hope you'll come back and chat with us soon.
Oh yes, and any parent, like I said, I'm not. Some people, I'm not the expert in Down syndrome. I'm not the expert in parenting, but I am here for any parent that does need to talk or needs to ask questions or advice, because I have to ask myself to other parents. So I'm open for any questions or help at any time as a parent.
Well, that's pretty special in itself that somebody would open their doors and say, "Hey, if you need help, come help." And I know there's also a lot of agencies out there that are trying to do those things. As we go along in the podcast, we'll be applying some of these agencies, putting them on our website and stuff to be able to find different resources out there. Uh, but hopefully everybody's taken away from the story today and been able to draw some things that can help them going forward. So we thank you again for your time, Miss Katie, and hope to talk to you guys soon.
Yes, thank you.